Today we sit down with Paul Berman, a property developer who has been a driving force behind the transformation of Cape Town's Atlantic Seaboard. Paul shares his journey from the sales floor to shaping the skyline, the catalyst behind Sea Point's remarkable revival, and why his unwavering optimism for Cape Town is stronger than ever. So we'll go straight into it. How did you enter sales and how has it shaped who you are now?
Within the group, we've got obviously different portfolios. As Saul mentioned, I take care of the administrative side of everything that we do. Saul doesn't have to worry about a thing. All he has to worry about is the execution and delivery, managing the project teams strategically and leading the design with the architects, implementing our vision that we discuss at an exco level, what we envisage, and so we got complementary skills, diverse portfolios. And I think it's just one of my passions is, and also a fixation of meeting every purchaser. Because not every purchaser suits your product. We've got to make sure that they fit the culture, they fit the product. I'm not saying we've turned many away, but there's certain that, in my career that I thought perhaps were not appropriate for whatever reason, whether they wouldn't respect the management and conduct rules or whatever it is. But it's the personal touch, and that's where we both, I think, possibly excel in is that we want to meet, because we're building something for someone and we want to meet that person. When we start a development, what you see is the culmination of years of acquisition, rezoning, consolidation, rezoning, design, where every single detail is determined. And then what you see is the contractor on site and the construction beginning. So the whole process can take 4, 5, 6 years sometimes from concept to delivery. And a huge amount of energy and resources and commitment and passion and flair and debate goes into it. How do we design? How do we be different? How do we uplift this particular block or location? And all that energy that's devoted into the design and development and delivery, we want to make sure that the person who actually purchases a unit in this incredible product ultimately are aligned in a way. We try our best.
Does it feel like it's almost like these projects are like your babies and you're like, I have to give it off to the best person to...
It's not necessarily the best. It's like, I can't tell you, there's an incredible emotional experience on delivery. You meet them at concept. Literally, it's a perspective of a vision that they buy into. Let's call it 18 months before delivery. They choose if there's an option on specification or particular package, and then you meet them on delivery with the keys. It's quite a journey, and it's an incredible response to see their reaction. Some burst into tears with excitement. So sometimes the first-time home buyer, people didn't expect such an incredible design and product at the end of the day. It's a wonderful experience, and we try and make that whole journey, that whole experience, quite momentous.
In all the years from when you've started developing properties till now, how has the landscape of Sea Point changed and trends that you're seeing?
Well, Sea Point has changed dramatically. I'd like to think that we were and are the catalyst to the change. We lived in the area. We understood the temperature of the area. And there was a disconnect between the high street of Sea Point, if I can call it the high street, and the multi-million rand properties on this beautiful mountain slope of Lion's Head, Bantry Bay, Fresnay, Sea Point, etc. Because what happened was when the waterfront opened 20 odd years ago, it sucked out all the retailers, the large anchor tenants, and left landlords naked. They had responsibilities, bonds that they had to service, I suspect, overhead structures. So what they did is, out of desperation, they took anyone who would take that space. So you had unsavory tenants moving in, which was the trigger for the decay of Sea Point. And if you look at Sea Point 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, it was certainly not in good condition. It was undesirable. Then a city improvement district was established, which is a top-up service to what the city supplies. So we got 24-hour security on the main road Sea Point. We've got a private cleansing company that removes about 30 tons a month over and above what the city does. And we've got social workers that try and rehabilitate the homeless, which is an incredible undertaking and initiative that the CID does, which was founded by property developers and owners like ourselves some 20 years ago. But what it required was big investment. In order to reattract the anchors, the larger users, it required, and people to come back into Sea Point and live and experience the energy of Sea Point, it required huge capital injections. And that was, people saw this as a risk. We saw it as an arbitrage opportunity almost, in that there was a disconnect between the residential component and the commercial component on the high street. So we started buying strategic properties along the entire Greenpoint, Sea Point, Bantry Bay, key or tributaries and high streets, and we started developing. And I think the Point Shopping Centre, which we did with our partners, HCI Hoskins Consolidated, we delivered that 12 years ago. That was an upliftment to the whole area. It was a huge undertaking. We spent over and above what we were required to spend just by creating something absolutely spectacular in terms of design. Robert Silk, the genius of Robert Silk, created this incredible design. And I remember sitting on the first day of the opening on 1 December, I can't remember, 12 years ago, because we didn't know how the market was going to react. And people walked in awe, looking at the finishes, the glass, the chandeliers, the lighting, the tenant mix, and it's become a community centre. We have about 8,000 to 10,000 people flowing through a day. We overparked. We created 4 basements, nearly 400 bays. People thought we were oversupplying parking. We should have built 6 basements, because even the 4 that we've built is not enough. So it's become an incredible community centre. And that's what's happened with a lot of our developments along the strip that we've developed. Along the way, we've just launched or unveiled Dolce Vita, which is on the corner of Church and Regent Street, which has and the tenant mix is so important because it's to create spice and energy in the area. So we've got Alachinas by Tasha's that opened in December with 65 residential units and a hotel called The Cole with a beautiful rooftop restaurant called Figa. A few years ago, we delivered Station House, which is another iconic building that it is a landmark. When you ask someone to meet you in Sea Point, they use Station House as as a point of signage or so. That also has got a mixed use with a hotel component, residential, all the facilities, rooftop restaurant and bar. And it's also become a landmark community hub of activity, particularly the restaurants. And there are many more stories like that. And each building has uplifted the area. They say a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's exactly what it's done to all the surrounding properties. And we will continue to do so. We've got some exciting projects that we're going to be unveiling over the next few years. I call it our pipeline projects. So it's very exciting.
Okay. So with all this great growth and the upliftment and all that, there's obviously the other side of it where Airbnb regulations, and there's a lot of issues with affordability and all that. How do you feel about the way the city is dealing with these issues that have come up?
Well, Airbnb has been an incredibly successful investment over many years. And I think the Airbnb listings exceeds 20,000 in the Western Cape. It's an enormous block. It has had a huge impact on long-term rentals and obviously long-term yields. They say regulation matures and stabilizes a market. We knew it was coming. We knew that there was regulation in draft form. And I think what it will do, it will ignite, once again, long-term rentals. It will allow perhaps those who could not afford to enter into certain markets, the ability to enter those markets. But again, the scarcity of the product. We have scarcity of product here. And even though the rates are increasing, because I think you know what they want to do, these properties were rated residential, and they're now going to get a commercial rating. So the rates associated with that property will go up fairly significantly. But I suppose the prices will adapt, because it's such an incredible location. This is such an incredible location, and the products are so spectacular, and there's such a high demand that I think it will be able to absorb those rates.
Okay. With those increasing rates and already where things stand now, there is this conception or misconception in people's minds that this is now tailored to foreign investors versus local investors. Do you see a pattern in there, or are people getting it wrong?
Well, I can tell you now, so we track the market scientifically and empirically, and I have tracked it for decades. But if I can give you some stats, because I go on data. So for the last 5 years, take from 2021. And this is all data that is consolidated and uploaded through PropStats by the different agencies. Now, yes, there are certain agencies that may not upload their data, but from the data that I can extract and consolidate, since 2021, sectional title and freehold sales from Greenpoint to Waterfront to Llandudno it's been hovering about 5.6, 5.7 billion rands of sales per annum, consistently. Even through COVID, those numbers stayed fairly consistent. And what is quite extraordinary, in 2025, the market jumped 46% to 8.2 billion rand. The point I want to make is, of those sales, that consolidated number that I mentioned, a third has consistently been foreign purchases. So 29 to 30% has been foreign, 70 to 71% has been local. And what is an incredible statistic as well, which I found astounding, of that number of 8.2 billion, going back historically, 20% has been mortgage finance and 80% has been cash. That's an extraordinary number.
Do you have any inkling as to why that's the...
I think there's been a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines waiting for appropriate investments. I think, and I remember certainly myself, I mean, I'm a converted immovable property proponent. I remember during COVID, while the markets were, or in any crash, while the markets were imploding, I remember being able to touch and feel my properties, or our properties, because there's an inherent and fundamental value, and over time, it'll reach its value, or constantly creating value. I think people see movable property as a very attractive asset class, particularly on the Atlantic Seaboard, underpinned by the huge demand, whether it's foreign, local, semigration, the rest of Africa. It's unbelievably attractive. And of course, the scarcity of the product. We don't have enough. There's not enough being delivered. We can't build and deliver enough product for the demand.
You don't see it as a bubble?
I don't see it as a bubble. Consistently since 1994, irrespective of market trends, we've been developing in the highs and the lows, we've been developing. We haven't always timed the market right, perfectly, although we've done very well in the different markets, even when markets were depressed or compressed. But I believe that Cape Town's been discovered. I think it's on the map. It's an incredible and attractive destination. It's got all the ingredients. The people, the culture, the proximity, the sea, the mountain, the wine, it's got everything that you could wish for in one place. And our government is accountable, entrepreneurial, and I think between business and government and the initiatives that we are engaging and embarking on, I think it's just an incredible opportunity. And I don't believe it's a bubble. If you look at the number of tourists and flights, I think it was 10.5 million passengers last year coming into South Africa. It's an extraordinary record. I think that's increasing year on year. And whoever I meet, new purchasers, foreign purchasers who come here for the first time cannot believe what Cape Town offers. Because what they see through publicity is completely different to the experience that they have here. And we South Africans are different. We're warm, we're engaging, we're different. And there are, not a few, but hundreds of people just come here. They can't believe the warmth of the people, of the country, of the amenities, of the lifestyle. It's unbelievably attractive, but fundamentally, does the asset preserve its value? And that's been proven year on year. It's underpinned by high demand, and I think the market's starting to catch up. Whereas before we were struggling to achieve 50,000 a square meter, 80,000, then we hit the 100,000. Now it's north of 200,000 in some areas in Clifton. It's an incredible underpin.
Are you optimistic of?
I am so optimistic about Cape Town. South Africa as a whole, we've got a lot of work to do. I wish our government became more entrepreneurial and fixated on delivery and accountability. And I hope that will change. But I'm incredibly hopeful and positive about Cape Town, the Atlantic Seaboard, about what our foundation is doing in education and creating hope. So yes, I get up in the morning with unbelievable energy and excitement. Sometimes I said to my son, sometimes sleeping's a waste of time. I can't wait to get up in the morning. I'm so excited. And hopefully that will continue.